Hello everyone. In this session, we will see how to create a database and what are the post-database creation activities. Now have a look at objectives of this session. We will come to know about different prerequisites, that are things which needs to be done before creation of database, various methods of database creation, for example using DBCA, which is a graphical tool, or database creation manually using commands and SQL scripts or with the help of OML. And after that, data dictionaries, which are metadata about database, or we can say tables and views which stores data about database and its objects. Planning and managing database. Whenever we want to create a new database, we should look for need, requirement, feasibility and architecture for creating a database. We should be clear about purpose of database. Purpose can be whether database is used for OLAP applications or data warehousing, or it's just a test database. We have to adopt for one type from many of databases, like dedicated, shared server mode or distributed type. After all this, we have to define the architecture of database. Architecture includes number of files and their locations. It also includes table space, their types, like table space is a temporary table space or it's an undo table space, workflow and data flow of database. It means we should know how many users are going to connect and which table space is assigned for particular user. Choose database name. Database name must be unique. We can use some naming convention while choosing a name, like if database is for testing purpose, then we can name it testdb. If it's for OLAP, then we can name it SS OLAP, where SS can be any application name and OLAP tells database nature. The first 2 or 3 characters of the name should reflect the application with the remainder indicating the nature of the database. Next is Optimal Flexible Architecture, OFA. OFA organizes database files by type and usage. Binary files, control files, log files, and administrative files can be spread across multiple disks. It establishes a directory structure where any database file can be stored on any disk resource. It separates objects with different behavior into different table spaces. It maximizes database reliability and performance by separating database components across different disk resources. Prerequisites, or things need to be done before database can be created. Let's see various prerequisites of database creation. First of all, privileged account for database creation. SysDBA privileges are required to create a database. These are granted either using operating system authentication or password file authentication. Before you create a database, make sure that the memory for the SGA, the Oracle executables, and the background processes are sufficient. Calculate the necessary disk space for database, including online redo log files, control files, and data files. Create a password file which will have password and entries of SysDBA users. Authentication methods. How can we provide authentications to user who is accessing database as SysDBA user? We can do this by various means. First is remote database administration. In this, first we check for secure connection. We check whether connection line between remote machine and server cannot be tapped or hacked by any person. If line is secured, we can have operating system authentication. In this, if a user successfully logged into OS running on Oracle server, then he can access database without any other authorization. Apart from OS authentication, we can also use password file authentication. Depending on whether we want to administer our database locally on the same machine on which the database resides, or to administer many different database servers from a single remote client, we can choose either operating system authentication or password file authentication to authenticate database administrators. Now, what is password file and why it is so important? In password file, we create entries for the users which can use database as SysDBA user. Oracle provides a password utility called ORA PWD to create a password file. When we connect using sysdba privilege, we are connecting a sys schema and not the schema associated with our username. We have to set a parameter in the initialization file if we want to use password file authentication. The parameter is remote underscore login underscore password file. We have to set its value to exclusive. Access to the database using the password file is provided by special grant commands issued by privileged user. For example, if user Scots want to have a sysdb privilege, then sys user can grant him sysdb privilege using a grant command, and by doing so an entry is made into the password file. Database creation. Creating a database can be done either using Oracle Database Configuration Assistant, that is DBCA, or by creating a SQL script using the create database command, which is manual method. The DBCA is a graphical user interface that interacts with the Oracle Universal Installer, or it can be used as a standalone to simplify the creation of database. The DBCA is a Java-based and can be launched from any platform with Java engine. During the installation of Oracle Server, DBCA is launched by the Oracle Universal Installer and can automatically create a starter database for us. We have the option of using DBCA or not, and you also have the option to create a starter database. We also have the option to launch DBCA later as a standalone application to create a database. If we are not using DBCA, we can create database manually by running a script which contains create database command. This command will build our database. After some time in this session, we will see how it works. Now, before creating a database manually or with the database configuration assistant, the operating system environment must be properly configured. Oracle underscore base. This parameter specifies the directory at the top of the Oracle software. We have to configure all the operating system variables so that our Oracle works smoothly. Next parameter is Oracle underscore home. It specifies the directory where the Oracle software is installed. The OFA recommended value is $Oracle underscore base / product / release. For example, if we are installing 11G server then on a Unix server, then Oracle base address can be u01 /app /oracle /product /11G. Oracle underscore SID. It specifies the instance name and it must be unique for Oracle instances running on the same machine. Oracle underscore NLS33. It's required when creating a database with the character set other than US7 ASCII. Path. Path specifies the directories the operating system search to find Oracle executables. The executables like SQL Plus. The SQL Plus in the Oracle 11G executables are located. LD underscore library underscore path. It specifies the directories for the operating system and Oracle library files. For example, $Oracle underscore home /library. Let's come to DBCA. The Oracle Database Configuration Assistant allows us to do the following. Create a database. This option allows us to create a new database or template. The template allows us to choose either with data files or without data files. Configure database options. This option allows us to add database options that have not been previously configured, such as the JVM, Intermedia, Visual Information Retrieval, Spatial, Oracle OLAP Services, SQL Plus Help. Delete a database. It allows us to delete a database which was previously created. Manage templates. This option allows us to create a template through one of the following methods. Create a new template using predefined method. From predefined template settings, create a new template and we can add or change any template settings such as parameter, storage or use custom scripts. Create new template from an existing DB. This template contains structural information similar to the existing database. This includes database options, table spaces, data files, and initializations parameter specified in the source database. Users defined schema and their data will not be part of the created template. And third option is from an existing database. This template will contain both the structure as well as the data of existing database. Databases created using such template will be identical to the source database. User-defined schema and their data will be part of the template. This template does not allow us to add or remove data files, table spaces, or rollback segments. Creation of database using DBCA is quite simple. It is a graphical tool. It will automatically create a database without any hassle, just prompting for few user inputs. We can select type of database. It means we can create it with data files, or we can create just a structure of database and add data files later according to our requirement. After that, we specify the global name and SID for our database. These must be unique. There are various features which we can use like OLAP services, Oracle Special, etc. We can specify these features also at the time of creation. We have to tell the DBCA whether we want to operate our database in dedicated mode or in shared server mode. After that, the values of the parameter like file location, archiving location, data block size, etc. In general, we use smaller block size with OLTP and use larger block size with the data warehousing environment. Then the various storage clause for our table spaces, control files, undo segments, and redo log groups. After defining all these, with just one click on Create Database button shown on DBCA window, our database will be created. For creating database manually, we have to do lots of tasks. First, we have to choose a unique instance and database name. We will connect to our database using this unique name. Then we have to choose the character set we want to use in our database. Character sets are how we store data. US7 ASCII, for example, is a 7-bit character set. The high bit is stripped. The WE81 ISO 8859P1 is the standard Western European 8-bit character set. It can store 2 times as many characters as a 7-bit one can. Single byte character sets are more optimal for performance than multi-byte character sets, and they also are the most efficient in terms of space requirements. However, single byte character sets limit how many language we can use, so we can select as per our requirement. As I already mentioned, we have to choose data block size. If we use smaller block size with OLTP and we use larger block size with a data warehousing environment. We have to set values for various operating system variables like Oracle_base, Oracle_home, and Oracle_SID, etc. We will create an initialization parameter file for our database. Also, we have to create directories or folders mentioned in the parameter files and create database script like directories where we want to store data files, redo files. Create database script is a SQL script which contains create database command specifying all the files, their location, and some parameters. Then we start our instance in normal mode and run this script or execute this script. If this script runs successfully, then our database is created. After the database is created, the instance is left running and the database is in open and available for user. Now the database contains data files, control files, and redo log files. Internal tables also, but there are no data dictionary views. For creating data dictionary view, we have to run 2 scripts. This is a sample create database script which contains create database command, creating a database of name ORCL. We are specifying redo log files which is having 3 log groups including 1 file each of size 10 MB, specifying character sets, specifying data files for system and sysops, specifying undo table space, and 1 default temporary table space. After the database is created, it contains only internal tables, but no data dictionary views. Base tables are underlying tables which store information about the database. The base tables are the first objects created in any Oracle database. They are automatically created when the Oracle server runs the SQL.bsq script at the time the database is created. Only the Oracle server should write to these tables. Users rarely access them directly because most of the data is stored in cryptic format. Data dictionary views are base table summaries which provide for a more useful display of base table information. For example, in the data dictionary views, object names are used instead of only object numbers. These are created by running two scripts after database is created. These scripts are catalog.sql, which creates commonly used data dictionary views and synonyms, and next is catproc.sql, which runs scripts required for server-side PL and SQL. Data dictionaries. Data dictionaries are central to the Oracle database. It means whole database stores or updates data only at one place. It describes various objects and database characteristics. Data dictionaries are read-only tables and views. Only Oracle server can modify it. These are stored in system tablespace under sysuser schema. We can view data only using select statement. Data dictionary contents. Now have a look at the content of data dictionaries. A data dictionary contains the definition of all schema objects in the database, which includes tables, views, indexes, clusters, synonyms, sequences, procedures, functions, packages, triggers, and so on. How much space has been allotted for and is currently used by the schema objects, default value for the columns, integrity constraints, the names of the Oracle users, privileges and roles each user has been granted, all the auditing informations, such as who has accessed or updated various schemas objects. All this information we can find easily in data dictionary views. Now data dictionary view categories. The data dictionary consists of three main sets of static views, distinguished from each other by their scope. First one is views with the DBA prefix, shows a global view of the entire database. They are meant to be queried only by database administrator. Any user granted the system privilege select any table can query the DBA prefixed views of the data dictionaries. View with the all prefix refers to the user's overall perspective of the database. These views return information about schema objects to which the user has access by way of public or explicit grants of privilege and role, in addition to schema objects that the user owns. The view most likely to be of interest to typical database users are those with the user prefix. These views refers to the user's own private environment in the database. They generally refers to the object owned by the current users, and they also return a subset of the information in the all views. This is the hierarchy. DBA prefixes tables contains all the data about any users. All contains the objects accessible by the current users, and the users prefixes tables contains data only about objects owned by the current users. Some examples are DB underscore tables, which shows information about any table, DB underscore indexes, which tells information about all the indexes, some DB underscore segment, and so on. Dynamic performance tables. Throughout its operation, the Oracle server records current database activity in set of virtual tables called dynamic performance tables or views. These virtual tables exist in the memory only when the database is running to reflect real-time conditions of the database operation. They point to actual source of information in memory and the control file. The dynamic tables answer questions such as Is the object online and available? Is the object open? What locks are being held? Is the session active? The dynamic performance tables are owned by user sys. Their name begin with $. Names of all the dynamic views are stored in $fix_table. These are some few examples of the dynamic performance tables. $control files have information about the control file which is currently running or accessible by the Oracle server. $database shows all the characteristics of the running database. Dynamic performance tables are virtual tables or volatile tables. As our database closes, all the data present in these tables vanishes. They just record real-time data of the running database. These are some naming conventions for Oracle scripts. We can have an idea about the work of script done on running by looking at its name. For example, cat_SQL. It means scripts which has name starting from cat. They give catalog and data dictionary information. DBMS, database package specifications. PREQUISITES, wrapped of database package codes. Utility.SQL, views and tables for database utilities. This is all about creation of database and data dictionary. Hope you found it useful. Thank you.